Welcome everybody. I'm going to begin by go over to what we're going to be doing today. So I'm going to start with introductions, introduce myself a little more formally here, and then we're going to get into working in a 3D model and basic steel modeling tools. So I'm going to compare kind of advanced steel with Revit, kind of show you the interface and the differences, and then we're going to do some very basic modeling in here to see the differences between advanced steel and Revit. And then I'm going to get into interoperability between Revit and Advanced Steel, kind of opportunities to figure out if you want to use one software package, two software packages, how I can work with both or not. And then I'm going to show you really kind of a way to work with both pieces of software using Revit and using Advanced Steel by transferring models into Advanced Steel. And then we'll have questions at the end. Okay, so my name is Veredith Keller, Senior Education Specialist for Architecture, Engineering, and Construction. I have over 16 years working in the industry, over 20 years as a consultant with architects and engineers, and over 18 years working with BIM Technologies. Yep, I've been around. Okay, so let's kind of get into this. So when you're working in Revit and or Advanced Steel, you're working in a 3D model. So yeah, we're modeling. When I make a change to the model, it's going to make change somewhere else. Inside of Revit, we have 3D models and we have views of the model that I can then push out to 2D documents. In Advanced Steel, we have a model and then I can push those out to 2D documents, which links back to the model. So they kind of work hand in hand, working on a 3D model. And I'm going to kind of get into showing the differences between the looks of the two. How do I start a project? So this is the look of Revit. So we have kind of a ribbon interface that you see on the top there. You'll see tools, panel names for organizing a lot of these different commands. You'll see some palettes like properties, project browser, and how to get around the model. So if I were to begin something new, I would start with a correct template. Then I would start designing grids to place, say, columns and other things so I can figure out where things are located. Then I would think about my floor-to-floor height here, my levels. And that's also true with Advanced Steel. Notice, this is the look of Revit, this is the look of Advanced Steel. Now, if you guys ever come from AutoCAD, what's nice about Advanced Steel, it is using that AutoCAD platform. Now, it is its own separate piece of software, but it works on top of AutoCAD. So you can technically have AutoCAD right in here too. Now, and you can use all your AutoCAD commands. Yep, like modifiers and things like that. So through here, you'll also see a ribbon interface. You'll see panels with tools designed on those ribbon interfaces. You'll see dialog boxes and you'll see palettes in order to work in here. Okay. Okay, now what I have in these demos is like a recording, but I'm going to talk on top of it and kind of go through the demos as stop and go type of discussion. So here we go. So this is Advanced Steel. So if I were to start something brand new, this is when you open up the software, it looks like this was my recent file window. So we're start something brand new. Important thing is to start with a template that comes with the software, not your ordinary AutoCAD template for you AutoCAD users. So to begin with, I choose an AS template. It comes with two of them, one for Imperial, one for metric. And I'm in. So when I'm in here, we're looking around, you'll see tabs up there, like you see with most Autodesk software packages, and so on. Yep. So here's all our tools designed on these two palettes. Now, what you'll see in here is the Advanced Steel tool palette. This is where I have all my AutoCAD, even AutoCAD modifiers on here, and also modifiers just for Advanced Steel. There's these tabs up to the side with tools on them that I can use. So as I go through here, you'll see custom connections, how to manipulate my UCS, and other things for viewing purposes and how to make my own custom things. Okay, I also always open up a thing called the Project Explorer. Through here, through the Project Explorer is where I can come in here and set up views. I can actually come in here and kind of do queries in here of things that I want to see. So if I were to begin something brand new, I start with a grid. So for my Objects tab, you'll see all these grid tools up there. So I'll go ahead and play that so you can see it. And so I start with a grid and I might type in 00 where I want to begin. Then I kind of give it the size of the grid. Now what's unique about Advanced Steel, it has grids and groups. if that's what I want. So say, for example, I double click on one of these vertical grids, and I can put in edgings. I can come in here and change the group number in here very quickly. Change that to be another number if I need to give more grids in here. It's pretty slick in how it works. Say I were to double click on the horizontal grids, same idea. Maybe I want to turn some edging on this. Now, how this grid looks does not dictate how the drawings look. It just allows me to see things nicer. Maybe just make 3 of them. Now you're going to see, this is how we start a project with grids. You're going to see up here how I can add more grids, remove grids from where I select. Give it a name, maybe one more extra grid at 4 feet, and I got it in. And then everything in here is very grippable, kind of like AutoCAD feel, where I can just kind of snap that in. Now over here in my Project Explorer is where I can set up levels if that's needed. So usually I have a couple in here that I want to use depending on the project that I'm using in here and what I'm doing. So this is also a way to control and see certain things on a certain level, so I don't have to see the whole model at the same time. So I'm making different heights. And then I can, deactivate, activate these levels. I can turn them on and off. Now there's another part of the Explorer, if I pick on a tab down there called Work Planes, is when I'm drawing, I can draw according to a work plane. So if I were to drop in columns, I would choose the 2 work planes to put them on, and that would be the height of that column. Yeah, and this is how I begin. I save it out. Okay, now in Revit, it's a little bit different. So if I were to start something brand new, I would start with what? The correct template. Of course, Revit comes with a large choice of templates in here. And I have palettes in here, and I have tabs, just like you saw with Advanced Steel, and palette names and how to get around. So if I were to begin, I would start with a grid. But when I do this is not groups of grids. It's basically drawing grids one by one. Of course, I can copy, array them to get this done pretty fast in here. And I have all these cool draw tools. Now, by the way, when you're in Revit, you always look up to the right to see this contextual tab up here. These are draw tools up here that I can use. Okay, I'm gonna let it go. And then let's say put some more in, and I draw another grid across in the other direction, and maybe type in A. Then the next one will be B, and so on, because it remembers what I type in last. Then I'll put an offset. Now I could copy these and modify, do all kinds of things to get these in, but I'm just placing them in. Okay, great, and that's looking pretty good. Maybe put an extra one here at 4 feet off of 6, and then I can always go to get out of it and change that to be 7. So these are placed singularly, not as a group like you saw in Advanced Steel, and both work just fine. Next thing I take a look at in here is my floor-to-floor height elevations. Now here I have to go to an elevation to check them out. This could be an elevation or a section. So this is what got put in the template that came with the software, and I can change it. I can add more levels also in here by choosing datum level, and I choose, well, what type of plan views that I want. I just need structural. Great. I look at my contextual tab, draw tools. Now I'll put one up here at 18 feet. So this doesn't have the Explorer that you saw in Advanced Steel. It has the browser with views attached to it. So now if I grab one of those, drag that up, looking good. And I always look at another elevation like east or west, just to make sure that these grids pass through the levels. So when I open up those levels, I'm going to see the grids. And this is how I begin in here. I look at grids and I look at levels. Okay, all right, got that set up, ready to go. What's next? Okay, next, we're going to get into just very basic modeling, show you the difference between Revit and Advanced Steel. Okay, the Revit modeling in here is slick, and Advanced Steel also creates great models too. They both work very nice, but there is a difference. So when I'm making framing inside of Revit, basically I can actually place columns and beams very quickly by windowing all the grids and just place them very quick. Then they have something in a Revit called beam systems. So therefore I can put beams between the girders very quickly to lay them out. Whereas in Advanced Steel, I need to place these individually. Yeah, pick them in one by one. Of course, I can put a whole group in and copy things around, but it's not quite as fast and quick as Revit, but still we're modeling. They work good one way or the other. It's just that, Revit's a little quicker once it comes to put it out framing. Now, also, if I were to grab anything and make change to it, in Revit, you pick on something, you're going to find all its objects through properties. We have two types of properties in Revit. One's called instance properties. Another one is type properties, where I can make changes. Of course, if I would need something unique inside of Revit, I would duplicate my type properties before I make changes anywhere in there, because type properties is a global update to all things called, in this case, a W12 by 30. So you got to be careful in type properties versus instance properties. Instance properties is individual. Advanced Steel is a bit different. When I start placing things in, or even double clicking on anything, or right click and choose advanced properties, not regular AutoCAD properties, but advanced properties, I'm going to see a dialog box. I just go through and make changes, done. So because Advanced Steel is made up of a lot of what I consider macro dialog boxes. Okay, it's nice. Now, once I get into other things like, say, bracing. In Revit, when I place bracing, I make framing elevation by picking on a grid line. It makes a real tight elevation area around a grid line. And then I open up that elevation and put bracing in. Whereas in Advanced Steel, I'm working on the model. I don't have view names. I don't have a browser. I have the model. So in here, if I put bracing in, I need to pay attention to the UCS, because if I don't, the bracing will be flat on the ground. Now, not every tool I have to worry about the UCS, the user coordinate system, that XYZ gizmo you see over here in this slide. Okay, so I had to manipulate my UCS more in Advanced Steel. In Revit, don't ever have to worry about it, but in Advanced Steel, you do. You get used to it. Okay, so let's check it out. Okay, so I'm back into Advanced Steel. I'm going to start here. So if I were to begin, I come in here and I look at my work planes because I want to drop columns in. So my active work planes are 0 to 1. So the height of the column will be up from 0 to 1. And I'm just snapping this on the grid intersections. There's an O-snap mode for grid intersections. So I have that on and I'm ready to go. Now I could put one in, copy it around, but I'm just going to snap it in just because it's kind of tied toward those levels in there, just for now. Okay, now watch when I put the last one in and then I enter. This opens up. What type of section do I want? What size is it? They all change together because I did it in one swoop command. I want to on center. I want to rotate them. They all rotate together. It's a macro dialog box. Now I want to start placing beams in here. I might use a continuous beam. Now, one thing I want to point out about Advanced Steel, the only O-snap I have on is node and grid intersection points. Because if you snap by choosing endpoints or anything like that, it's not going to connect right. We want things to connect in here nice and neat. So the node O-snap is your important O-snap mode inside of Advanced Steel. Great, and of course, what shape do I want? I want that positioning top down. And they all change together. Now, once I get something in, there's nothing wrong with copying in here. Sure, I choose a bunch of these and copy them, so I have to place them in one by one, but they're being placed individually. And it can get fast, right? Because, I could array it, copy it, whatever I want to do. All right, individual. Now, I have in here a project a little more down in here. Now, but before I do that, if I want to place some pieces inside of here, I might track it out, put one in all by itself. Sometimes I draw construction lines like line work because I can convert lines into beams, polylines into beams, which can be very useful too if it's a very complex kind of type of model. Choose one of those, guess what? I'm going to copy it. But we're doing these as individual pieces. Yeah, and that's how we do it inside of Advanced Steel. Now I have something a little more done in here called platform bracing. Okay, when putting in bracing, and I go up, and I can make a new model view just based off of grid line 1. I don't have to make these, but I just want to show you some techniques in here. Give it a name, great. And then you'll see this little box around it, and I choose the direction I want to look towards this view. And I turn it on, and I just see grid 1. Just that area. It just makes it easier to work if it's very complex structure in here. Okay, now I come up here and notice. It says insert structural bracing of various designs on UCS plane. Anytime you see this help tip that says UCS, you got to pay attention to the UCS, that XYZ Gizmo user coordinate system. Okay, so all right, because right now I need to manipulate my UCS, and luckily Advance Steel has some great tools to modify your UCS. Now that I have my Y up, X to the right, I can now snap this in on that face. Now when I'm in here, dialog box opens up. Oh, I can choose the section size that I want, the type of section. Maybe I'm going to do something a different size, perhaps in here that I see in this long list of different sizes. This is all driven that comes with the software, out of the box stuff. Okay, single, inserted, what type of bracing type that I want? I'm going to go single for now. I can change its positioning, the number of fills that I'm using, and change the offset, top down, all through the dialog box. Now, one thing I want to mention in here, on these dialog boxes, notice we have numbers here and a nice example of pictures. So you know what 1 means, 2 means, 3 means of this nice little example here. All right, so I just thought I'd point that out. All right, and I'm ready to go, and I can get some stuff done in here. Save it out, put my UCS back to world. Okay, now in Revit, check out the difference between that and this. So let's try this one. Now here, I can go columns. Now also, look, people have a hard time of looking up and to the right, into the green contextual tab area. There's all kinds of tools up here. Vertical columns, center columns, add grids, add columns, tag it as you go. What do you want? Properties, what size do you want? Okay, I want a W 12 by 30. Add grids. Crossing window around the whole thing, boom, columns done. Now that's fast. Okay, I love that. So now if I say, okay, let's put some beams in. What type of beam do I want? Well, I want a W 12 by 30. I have on grids here too. Yep, crossing window around. I can put them in individually. If I can get away with this, that's great. Oh, now that's fast. Maybe go to shade mode. This is a visual style toolbar at the bottom. Okay, now we have something really great in here called beam systems. I want to say 12 by 19 every 5 feet. Great, looking at my options bar under my ribbon to figure out what I want. And I can get these in here real fast. And Advanced Steel, I put one in and copied it around. Here, there are groups of things. Of course, I can always destroy that group, but I got it. And that's all in here pretty darn fast. Okay, now I need to put some bracing in. If I need that, I need to make an elevation. It's called a framing elevation, and you pick right on a grid line. And that elevation area is real tight around that grid. And I have this kind of what is called kind of a region area that I'm going to open up here a little bit so you can see this. And I'm going to change my level of detail so I can see this a little more 3D-like. And then I'm going to go to my structure tab and I'm going to choose brace. What type of shape do I want? I want a SSH square. And this I snap in. There's no dialog box that pops up. And just draw them in, which is fine. It all works out great. In Revit, I always like to, especially with bracing, I go bottom up because of the analytical model behind all this. Great, got it? Okay, cool. Okay, now if I take a look at that in 3D, I'm getting some things done. And I keep on working on it. Cool, working on a model. Okay, that's wonderful. Now, so that technique is slick and how that all works. I like how I can build out a project here pretty darn fast. Okay, now I'm going to get into another level of detail, and that is connections. There is connection tools in Revit and Advanced Steel. In Revit, the connection tools haven't been around with Revit forever. And then they began to kind of add the connections that came in from Advanced Steel. So there's over 130 plus connections in here. I lost count, but there are over 130 in both Revit and Advanced Steel, default out of the box. Of course, I can make my own custom connections if that's needed. But I'm just going to show you things out of the box. Okay, great. Let's see what I got out of this. Okay, now in Revit. So when I put in a connection, it's going to make cutbacks for the frame. It's going to add plates, bolts, welds as specified. Same thing with Advanced Steel. In Advanced Steel, though, it's got custom macros, but it's still going to do the same thing as Revit, cut back the framing, add plates, bolts, welds, and as specified. But this has a macro, and this means you place them in first and then change them later in properties. Here, once I put it in, I can change it as I model through a macro dialog box in Advanced Steel. Okay, cool. Now, also, once I start with connections, I'm going to see kind of like in properties what I've loaded in, plus a help tip and directions in how to place them through properties that I have to load them first. In Advanced Steel, I'm going to see this great connection bolt where I'm going to see all them all up front. And then as I move through them, I'm going to see description, picture, and how to place them. Okay, so that has a palette. This has, it's a little different. It goes through properties instead inside of Revit. Okay, now, if I were to begin in Revit putting in custom connections rather, I open up the connection settings and load the connections that I want to use. So I have all connections, a whole list of all of them all together, or there's groups in here that I can choose from to load connections. But in order for me to use them, I load what I want to use. And in Revit, also, if I want to change it, I put them in first, and then I go through properties, edit type to make changes to that connection of the default that I put in. I can do instance change or type change of the connection, but I got to put them in first. Okay, in Advanced Steel, it's a bit different. I have the connection bolt. I don't have to load anything in, it's there. It's ready to go. Okay, but through here, when I put a connection on, it's going to open up the macro dialog box, and I go through all these choices, and then I can save this to a library that I can use in other software, in other Advanced Steel projects or new projects. Okay, so in Revit, I can't save to libraries, but in here I can. It saves it to my database from here on out once I make a save, which makes things kind of nice and organized in here so I don't have to do things over and over again on each project. Okay, let's take a look at this. Here we go. Okay, I'm going to start with Advanced Steel on this one so you can see the differences. Okay, so I were to come in here and I'm going to open up something called the connection bolt, which I really like. It's a nice little palette, looks like this, and I'm going to kind of pan over here so you can see this a little bit better. So through here you have a series of different group and tabs with all these kind of pieces kind of organized nicely. You'll see an image and a description on how to select things as you look through all these. There's platform beams, beams end-to-end, general bracing. So it's ready right here, ready to go, and you just choose one and go. Okay, great. So that's very nice. So they got lots of things in here for us. So let's say to start with a plate of beams. I'm going to choose a base plate. Now I can collapse this look and description by choosing the arrowhead at the top right corner, just so it gives myself a little more space. Base plate, and I pick on one of these columns. Now they ask me if there's a concrete object there, but I don't have concrete in here right now. And I'm in. It's a macro dialog box, and it puts something on it. You see it at the bottom. So through here, then I go through, we have tabs and sub-objects under these tabs. There's the layout, the thickness of the plate dimensions. I maybe make that 4 inches on all sides, change the size. I can add plate corners if I want that. I can come in here and choose the hull anchor and holes, what anchor it's using. I'm just going to keep what I'm using right now. I can add additional washer plates. Anchors parallel webs, meaning the distance between those anchors. And then the count. Same thing with anchor parallel flange. If I go back, for example, to a parallel web, I can change this distance from 4 to 6, and it changes. If I need anything like additional stiffeners and plates, I can add those and galvanized holes if I need those. Then once I'm done with it, because I don't have to do all that again, I save this to the library and then I'm ready to go. Anytime you see in here, by the way, anytime you see something with percent means, this is examples that come with this software. It gives you kind of a starting point. I save it, I give it a name, and I have saved this in my database on my computer. So any project open up from here on out will have that in it, or anything new. Ready to go. Okay, now there's tools in here too. Sorry about that. Didn't mean to do that. I picked the wrong button. Oh well, I'm going to come in here and slide this over here a little bit. My mistake. Okay, right over here. So in here, you'll see these tools where I can create a joint group in a joint group property, and I can also propagate this joint very quickly throughout the model. So yeah, so if I change one, they all change together. Now to back up on this just a little bit, because I picked the wrong button here by mistake. Let me back up. Okay, through here, if I click on something and I go to base plate and I say, oh, let's change that to be something else, because all I have to do is double click on the joint box to change what's going on with that. That changed all by itself, but I can add this to the joint group. If I pick that and then I choose that, they now match. So I could do that if I want. I can also choose the joint box, right click and do a propagate joint. And whoop, there it goes. And now they're all on all the same column size and direction. There's another column size, it won't put them on there. They have to match the criteria. Let's do another one. So let's say I choose a clip angle. And I pick on a column, enter, and then a beam, enter. And I got a clip angle in there. Okay, cool. And put in some type of default something in here. So I'm going to go through and check it out. I want this to be not an identical clip angle. Instead, I'll choose a profile, different profile size of this angle. I'll choose maybe identical, not identical, and then I go through and choose the size that I'm interested in. So these drop down arrowheads, kind of twist down arrowheads there. Okay, great. Now that looks good, but the bolts are kind of close to the edge there. So through here, I can figure out welds it's using, copes, bottom copes, can change that. Let's take a look at the horizontal bolts and change that back mark to 2 instead of 2.5. Looking good. I can also change the vertical bolts in here too, if it's groups and how I want that to be displayed. And I can change lots of things through these tabs. I can add a lot of holes and shim plates in here too. Now, say I went through all that trouble working on this. Again, I'll save this to my library. I'll come in here and edit that and give it a name. So therefore, I don't have to go through this whole list of things to take a look at everything in here. I'm ready to go for my next project, or even while I'm working in here. Okay, awesome. Now I might click on that joint box, right click and do joint, propagate the joint. And find the same criteria, are the same size columns and the same size beams, and just pulls them in very quickly. So that propagate joint is pretty slick. Now, okay, so that works. I like this palette and how it feels. I like how that all works. Now in Revit, same idea, but different. So through here, I got to go to my Steel tab and choose the connection setting arrowhead and load what I want. I can also go find groups of things in here, like platform beams, find those, things I want to use in here. I'll load them as I need them. In Advanced Steel, I didn't have to do that. Here I do. And I might change my level detail fine, because you won't see the connections in here unless I'm in fine detail, it's called. And I'll put a base plate, just like you saw earlier, onto this column. And it's just telling me it's doing some cutbacks in that message, that's fine. Okay, that looks good. Now, if I choose that and I right click, I also have propagate connection here too. Finds the same columns, same type, same direction, and places them. It can't be something different. Notice the columns on grid line 7, the base plates are on there because it's a different type of column. Okay, great. Now, if I pick on that base plate, to make changes in here, I have to go through Properties, Edit Type. And if I choose that top Edit button, and if I make a change here, it's going to make a change to all the clip angles that I just put in. Global update. Sometimes I even do a duplicate on these, but in this case, I don't need to. I just change the dimensions. Again, look, this looks very similar to Advanced Steel and all the tools that you see in here. Same tools, but now inside a Revit. Very nice. Welds, additional stiffeners and plates, all kinds of welds in here that I can choose from, stiffeners and plates, holes, and so on. So if I click OK, now in this case, they're all going to change together because I went through type properties to do it for the default settings for this. And I'm doing it in this project only. But if I want this to be unique, I can also do an override by instance checkbox in properties. Choose that, open that up, and make a change just to this only. And then I'll change that to be something else. Oh, and I've only made change to that. If I change that and uncheck override instance, it's going to put it back to the type properties of the base plate. So it is nice and versatile in here. Same thing if I do put another connection in for, say, clip angle, I had to hold down Control and choose both of these at once. Holding down Control, choose both of them at once. Find details so I can see it, and there's my clip angle. Again, I could propagate on here, same thing you saw with the base plate. And again, if I wanted to update just one of them, I choose one of them, and I go through Properties, and I override by instance by checking that on. So with this nice tool, if I do that, I go through Edit Type, I'm making change just, I'm sorry, through Edit, not Edit Type, just this clip angle only. So I want this to be a larger clip angle than the rest. I'll make it real obvious. Obviously that's changed. Now, if I want to put it back to everything else, then I uncheck instance and it's back to the other ones. So you can override what is called the instance and properties if that's what I want. Through here, it's global update, type properties. Make a change to one, they all change together. And sometimes you got to be careful of this. So say I want all the back marks to be 2 inches instead of 1 3/4 on either side. I can zoom into that little previewer, which is kind of nice too. And the only way I can see it in the model is click OK, get out of it, and see the change. Through here, we do at least have a little preview window here to give me an idea of what I'm doing. Okay, and they all have changed together. So, yep. But I have the same type of connection, same library that you saw in Advanced Steel. It just feels a bit different, that's all. All right, cool, connections. Now, let's take a little closer look at kind of the interoperability between Revit and Advanced Steel. I'm going to kind of discuss this through documentation. Now, when I'm doing documentation in Revit, basically, I'm doing a lot of duplicating of drawings to make the views look different things. Maybe I want dimensions and tags in one view and not another. Then I make a sheet and I drag the view onto a sheet. And that's how we do it inside of Revit. So sometimes that project browser can get quite long of different looks that I want to see on different sheets, which is fine, it's good. Okay, in Advanced Steel, we can take that to another level for fabrication. Revit can't quite do fabrication drawings, but Advanced Steel can. And that's why I can use these two software packages together if that's what I want. Maybe I don't care about fabrication drawings, so just use Revit. Depends on what you're looking for. So when making fabrication drawings and documentations inside of Advanced Steel, we number everything first. And then we have a series of things called drawing styles and drawing processes and BOM templates, palettes. Now I'm showing you the defaults in here, but everything can get changed in here and how it looks and how it behaves. Okay, so through here, I just choose a drawing style and it starts making a drawing for me. Now what it's going to do is going to make a 2D drawing, a separate 2D drawing, not in the model that I'm working in, but a separate 2D drawing that links back to my 3D model. So if I make a change in my 3D model, I can update the 2D drawings. Okay. Whereas up here in Revit, I make a change and the model is going to make a change in my plan instantly. Hence the word Revit, revision instantly. Oh well, anyway, yeah, cool. This is a little bit different in here. I have to pick a button to update. Still fast. Okay, so also through fabrication drawings is where I can make things like DXF files and C files to go out to my CNC machine if I'm doing fabrication. Depends if you're doing that or not. Okay, so through here, when utilizing documentation in Advanced Steel, you're going to see this document manager. Basically, it's making drawings on my drive or on my server where my main project is, and setting up a series of folders for me automatically. And then I can find those quickly inside of the document manager in Advanced Steel. Open them up, tweak them out, I'm ready to go. And can do automatic revision updates and all kinds of cool things in here. All right, let's see what's going on with these two guys. So in Revit, so we're just starting here, I would duplicate some views. I start making views in here of certain looks, certain things I want to have, things turned on and off. So I come in here and give these new names. So I come in here and I start duplicating views. Because in this view, I might want to see dimensions and tags. Another view, I might not want to. But tags in here are pretty fast. So let's tag all the framing tags. Let's go. Boom, tagged. Fast. Okay, then I might put some dimensions in here. Now, dimensions are done like you would do manual dimensions in here. Is picking these in one by one, kind of like what you're used to for you AutoCAD users, how AutoCAD behaves in a way. And then I might do an overall. So I'm just doing my own thing in here. Great. I'm doing the same thing just so I can get an idea of the differences. Then I do an overall on this one also. Okay, that's nice. Now I make a new sheet in the browser. It's a title block. Okay, how do I get the view on there? Well, I just come in here and of course I can rename the view, give it a better name, give it something that makes sense. Now a lot of people have their templates set up with certain sheet names and numbers to keep standards set in here. I'll just give you an idea of how this works. And I got a viewport in here. Oh, there it is. Now, if I wanted to tweak out this view, all I have to do is double click inside of the title block viewport to activate it. So I don't have to open up the view in the browser. Just double click inside of it. Maybe I don't need to see some of these tags in here, so I get rid of them. Those are some shapes under from where I'm working that I don't see right now. Okay, cool, and so on. Clean it up a bit. Of course, I could have done that in the view before I even put it on a sheet, but I can do it after I put it on the title block and tweak it out. Then I come in here and I double click on the outside somewhere to get back to the title block itself. And we can work back and forth that way. Okay, we also have schedules in here. Now, usually a lot of people make schedules and put them in their company templates and get them ready to go, and they just start filling out for me. Just so you know how they behave, say I'm doing a framing schedule. All right. What do you want to see in this schedule? Kind of like a BOM. Okay, so I got that. I will put the type in. Maybe I'll come in here and put some comments in here. These are all fields that I can add. And there's formulas that I can attach, all kinds of cool things in here. And I'm going to go like that. I'll put a footer in. I'll put some titles in. I'll switch out the formatting a little bit. So I'm just making this look the way that I want this schedule to look. And the appearance has to do with line types, what this looks like. Oh, okay. So now it's doing counts. So I got 63 of those, 12 of those, and so on. At the very bottom is the grand total. Then I can say, okay, let's make another new sheet and put that schedule onto here. And I'll give this a better name too. This all works great in Revit of what I'm doing right now. Yep, there's no doubt. Of course, it's a really long schedule, but I can easily tweak this out by changing the column widths in here. Doing my thing, I can even break the schedule so it fits all onto a sheet. I can move these different pieces around and so on. Looking good. I got a schedule. Now, and that's where I can take Revit. I can't quite pull out fabrication drawings. I can't make DXF files and CNC files to go out to my machine shop, but in Advanced Steel I can. All right, so let's see what this does. Okay, so when I start in here, if I double click on anything, notice there's no name attached to this. There's no numbers. So for this to work great in fabrication drawings, I need to start numbering things. So I have a certain way I like to number things. I like to, all my single parts start with 1,000, and all my assemblies or main parts, I like to start with number 1. And then it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Okay, great, got that? Click OK, and it's going through, and it says it might just take a little while. It's actually really fast. It's going through, and it's numbering. Done. And it shows me what it put in on all these pieces. So notice I have counts in here too of certain numbers of the same thing. Okay, so now if I double click on like a column or something else in there, I go to naming, it's being numbered. Single part and assembly part. Assembly means anything bolted or welded to it is considered part of an assembly. Okay, now what? Now I need to put this out to drawings. So in Advanced Steel, we have a series of drawing styles. Now this is out of the box looks right now. This all can be changed, but let's try a few things. Now for this first one, I want you to make a drawing of what this looks like as is, a 3D model look. So I had to always think about my UCS. Notice as I'm going through here, you'll see different kind of categories, different looks, explanations of what these things do, and examples, pictures. So if I come through here and say, okay, I need to make a engineering drawing of this, but I need to think about my UCS. And I'll change it to view so the Z is coming out at me. And I'll say, okay, let's make an engineering drawing without labels. And so this is called a prototype. It's basically where my title blocks live. It's where my dimension styles live, text styles, symbols loaded, all inside of a thing called a prototype drawing. Okay, now through the document manager, it did put it on my drive, but also put it here so it's managed through here so I don't have to go hunt for it on my computer or on the server, wherever it happens to be. Okay, oh, that looks pretty good. And that's what it did for me through my model. So I don't have a browser with different views. I have drawing styles instead to make a view look a certain way. Now this it's made a separate drawing and it put it in paper space. Okay, let's do another one. Put my UCS back to 0. And how about, let's make an anchor plan here. And I'll do an anchor plan grid dimensioned. So it's going to dimension the grid for me. So I don't have to do it myself. Okay, do it. Great. Let's check that out. I open up my document manager and check that one out. So this one, it actually did some dimensioning for me. And actually put labels on for me. I didn't do that, just did it through the drawing style. And it dimensioned it for me. It did some really weird dimensions, but we actually have what is called parametric dimensions inside of Advanced Steel. So you're adding dimension or changing dimensions, you need to go through parametric dimensions, not AutoCAD dimension tools. The dimension tools that AutoCAD using is the dimension style, and that's about it. Yeah, perfect. Simple to fix up. Okay, looking good. Now, let's just say I need to make another view of a next level up. And again, we have to think about our UCS a lot in here. And in Revit, I don't have to worry about my UCS is because it's actually making slices through the building according to views. And here it's a little bit different. So I have to come in here and maybe make a plan view of this up on the next tier up. All right. See what I got out of this. Open that up. I got it. And it looks like this. This one is basically didn't do any dimension. It was set to just do labels. Of course, I can actually make a drawing style to also dimension this for me too. But that's what it did, all through a drawing style. Okay, now let's take this a step further. I'm going to put my UCS back to world in this case by choosing my tools, UCS tools. And I'm going to move it here. And then I want to make an elevation. So I don't have a views that I make elevation from. It's where my UCS is. Okay, this one's very popular. It's called elevation symbol. It's a symbol look of a view. And I'm not going to do the whole model, just part of it. Okay, it's doing its thing. It's making a drawing. Let's check it out. So in this case, there's some interesting things that what this is doing right now is very powerful, But to make it look and behave and how you want this to look and how the style, everything looks in here, all can be changed. That just takes some time. But once it's, you fix it the way you want, then it's done. All right, yeah, symbol look. Okay, now what I'm going to do, so you can see how I really kind of pull things out for assemblies, DXF files, NC files to go out to my machine shop. This is the next step. And that is, I'm going to kind of close down my drawing styles and open up something called drawing processes. This takes drawing styles to another level. Basically, I can do camera shots, single parts, just go out and make a whole bunch of drawings of all my single parts go. And then I can do selected, everything, or just selected. I'm just going to do selected assemblies, so I don't do the whole model. So I'm selecting my objects that I want to make an assembly from, okay, instead of the whole model. So I'm going to choose one of these called Selected Assemblies Full Page ANSI. Full page means if it can't fit everything on one drawing, make another drawing for me. So let's do it. Yeah, there it goes, it's doing its thing. Now, this one has a bill of material on the drawing. So let's check it out. Whoa, look at that, that's pretty fancy. I click OK, great. So it actually took each assembly and made section cuts of it. And actually you'll see weld symbols attached to it. Did a lot of dimensioning here, sometimes a little bit too much, but that all can be cleaned up. And then if you notice on the upper right corner is a kind of a list up there, of what I see in this particular view. Very fancy. Yep, that did a lot. So I have to cut sections myself. It just did it. Now let's just say, okay, that's nice, but now I need to take my plates and beams and go out to my machine shop or send it to somebody that can fabricate these. So what I would do is, oh, actually I'm gonna do one more here. Actually I'm gonna choose, I'm not gonna do everything. I'm just gonna select things first, where I can do a DXF files of my selection. If I don't select anything, it's gonna do the whole model and I'm not gonna wait for it. So I made a whole bunch of NC files. And we also have NC settings in here too for NC and DXF settings that I can check out. And then I'm gonna go to NC also, just so you can see two different kinds. Okay, what did that do? Well, let's see. This is where Revit cannot do this. So through here, I have a bunch of NC files that has attached number data to it that I can go out to my machine shop and have them cut that piece. So as I'm going through here, here's a bunch of DXF files, depending what what type of machine that I'm using, that I can, whether it takes DXF file or NC files or maybe both. Usually I tell people, do one thing first, test it out, make sure it works the way you want, and then you can do all of them. And I can send all those files out to the server where it can grab it or send it to them somehow. I've even actually walked out with a thumb drive to a machine shop to make sure it works well in the machine. There's also something called BOM templates. This allows me to save a bill of material externally. There's all kinds of different things in here I can pull out too. I'm gonna do one in here that I like because it's cool looking, called Saw List Pictures. It's doing its thing and it's making an external BOM for me. Oh, slick. Yep, of what I have in here, of marks. And I can export this out to different formats like PDF, HTML, Excel files, TIFFs, text, and I can even save this within my project if I want to open this up again and take a look at it. Ah, nice. I like it. Okay, now, with all that said and done, what if I like to Revit and model, and I like to model in Revit and then take it in here to do those fabrication drawings? Okay, this is where I can transfer Revit models into Advanced Steel. Basically in Revit, you load in a add-in, and it's free. You can get it from your subscription website, where I can export my Revit model into an SMLX file. And then from that, I can open that SMLX file inside of Advanced Steel. And then I can take that out further to fabrication. if I'm worried, if I need that. If I don't need that, I'm not going to worry about it. Sometimes I know some people have started a model in Revit. I don't want to have to do it again. So I'll bring it in, work further with it inside of Advanced Steel. Okay, here's how we do it. So inside of Revit, I got a model, and I don't have any connections, but I could have connections on it. And now I want to send this out to Advanced Steel to go into fabrication drawings. So that's what I need. So here's what we do. First thing we do, excuse me, we go into the add-ins tab, and up in the add-ins tab is the add-in for Advanced Steel extension. You'll see right up there, the first icon. In here on the drop down, you'll see all these export, import, synchronize, because I can bring something in from Advanced Steel into here also, vice versa. And usually I have all these on because I like to bring the grids in, I like to bring my levels in. I don't want to ignore the cutbacks because I haven't done any connections in here. And then I export this out to Advanced Steel, click OK. And this is a little SMLX file. It's a steel markup language. It's basically a file, kind of like a middleman between these two software packages. Okay, it's out. Then I open up Advanced Steel. Now inside of here, it's a blank project, nothing in it. So now I'm gonna, because I haven't done anything yet, so I'm going to import and bring in that Revit model. Now this extension, I don't have to load it in manually. It automatically comes with the software ready to go. So I don't have to, it's not an add-in. Okay, great, there it is. That's from Revit, yeah. Put it up, it's a W12 by 30. Keeps the intelligence intact. Okay, cool. Now, let's just say in Revit, I made a change. So say these columns should be different size. Okay, so I choose them and make a change to them. Make them bigger. Now, I still do have to go out and push this out again to it's not quite a link. I have to still go out to an XML file, but the exact same name. Not a new name, exact same name. And yeah, I'll replace it. I go back into Advanced Steel, and then I do synchronize instead, and load in that SMLX file. Got it. Okay, now it's going to show me the changes through here. Now there's a little filter icon at the bottom, so I don't have to see everything, but I like to see everything. I like to see all the changes. I could just maybe do one change, but I'm going to do them all, check them all on, and apply all the actions. Now, if I double click on one of those, guess what? That's a W12 by 40. Now this time, I'm going to leave this dialog box open, this synchronized dialog box. I'm going to go back to Revit and say, what was I thinking? I need it. This is not, these columns aren't correct. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to choose those and I'm going to change those back to where they were. What was I thinking? But I still have to go back and export out to an XML file. Same name, keep it always the same name that you did in the first place and replace it, yes. I go back into Advanced Steel and then I can just do a refresh. And then through here, it's going to tell me everything that got changed. I don't have to change anything, but I'll change them all, apply all the actions. And now, as you notice, that has changed. So we can, if we can actually work together in the two software packages in this way, work back and forth. If I start something in Advanced Steel, I can do the same thing and bring it into Revit in that way too, back and forth. It just depends on who started the project and what's going on. The typical thing I've seen a lot done these days is to start in Revit, get all the framing done, get that all squared away, because it's nice how that model's in there. Then I bring it inside of Advanced Steel, and then I can even put all my connections in here or in Revit, but I like to work with the connections in Advanced Steel and then push out to fabrication drawings. If I don't need fabrication drawings, don't need them. So with that, in that case, okay, well, what is going to work for you, Advanced Steel or Revit? What's suited better for you? Maybe you can use both, Revit and Advanced Steel. Can you choose, to identify the opportunities to work in both or not? Depends on your workflow. All right. And that takes me to any questions.